Welcome, everyone.
Yes, good morning. I hope you're more awake than I am. So we'll have a lovely day together again.
Yes, yeah. And I hope you had an excellent evening last night and enjoyed the lantern procession. I have given mine a little name. It's called the Little Steaming Mountain. So, and I do hope you'll have an opportunity to see other lanterns. I think there's another activity that will involve the lanterns later. But yes, welcome today. I do want to remind you, for online participants and participants here, I've been trying to figure out some Estonian phrases. And yesterday I told you that something about asking questions. Well, today I also learned that there's a phrase called, I'm going to say this terribly, excuse me, "Kusia supita ei loda," which means you don't hit the mouth of one who asks. So be sure to think about the questions that you want to ask the panelists and others as they go, and feel free to type them into your discussion chats.
So we first start off with a session about light in the European capital cities, and I think we'll hand over to Jessica to do this professionally in a good way. So Jessica, please be on stage.
Thank you. I'm shorter than most people. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here this morning, bright and early. I know that maybe many of you had a great night last night and are a little tired this morning, so we'll try to wake you up with some, creative things this morning. First of all, thank you so much, especially yesterday, for everyone who contributed to the lantern making process. A big thank you to the workshop leaders, which was Walk the Plank from the UK, with Mirjan Ostrov, who was the artist who led it. And I think there was a lot of great connections between you all, the artist, Walk the Plank, some connections that maybe wouldn't have been made otherwise. So that's the power of art and culture, is bringing people together around the common language of art. Some of you may have never thought that you were an artist, but you were able to easily create these lanterns. Look how beautiful they became in the end. At first it looked maybe a little stick and paper. What is this going to look like? And in the end, it became this beautiful procession that really gave me chills this morning. I don't know about anyone else, but it was truly beautiful. So thank you so much for everyone's participation in that, and Walk the Plank for organizing it. I think they deserve a great round of applause. And so we're going to continue on this journey of creativity by looking at creative lighting and lighting in capitals of culture. But before I introduce the panel, just a few, for our online participants, just want to say hello again. Our moderators already welcomed you too. Today we tried to make things a little better for you, so there's a main chat session. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see chat, and there you can see everyone talking to each other, and you can put your questions there, say hello to everyone in the room. Our team member Noé Aubois is in Lyon right now behind his screen, animating that chat room, so if you have any questions, you can also ask him. He'll be there as I'll be here on screen, and so I can't be everywhere as a clone, unfortunately. Maybe one day. So back to today's session. Really exciting to be putting this together. Why are we talking about European capitals of culture? Well, because many cities actually in the LUCI network have been past capitals of culture, are current capitals of culture, or will be capitals of culture. And so we thought there's something happening in these cities, and many of them are using light or thinking about using light in the future. So we thought it'd be a great time, especially as we are in Tartu, and Tartu will be capital of culture in 2024, that it's the moment to talk about it. So we've got a great panel lined up with Beatriz Garcia, who's from the Center for Cultural Value at the University of Liverpool, and I'll let her introduce a little bit more. She's really the expert on European capitals of culture, and we are so happy to have her here today with us. Then we're going to hear from Matera 2019, Oulu 2026, and Tartu 2024. Unfortunately, Helen Marriage, who was going to be with us to talk about Galway 2020, was unable to come. We'll really miss her, and we hope to hear from her at a future LUCI event. So thank you so much for being here, and without further ado, Beatriz, I invite you to the stage.
Thank you very much, Jessica, and it's a real pleasure to be here and to be here in person. So what a fantastic few days we are having. I was delighted to be asked to join you and to join this AGM to discuss, how events such as the European Capital of Culture might have contributed or energized conversations around city light strategies. And I'm just coming from Liverpool, where precisely these days we have the River of Light festival taking place. It was just being set up as I was leaving the city where I'm based. And as it's happening here, what we have is all of these corridors, circuits throughout the city, full of light artworks. It has been a very interesting year, 2021, because we have had 2 editions in one of River of Light due to the cancellations back in 2020. And this is indicative of the value that this festival has had in the city, where people really do not want to miss it, and the commissioned artists are really eagerly awaited. It's a celebration that has taken place since 2016, and in fact is something that emerged very much out of the new thinking and aspirations that the city grew up into since being European Capital of Culture in 2008. What is even more interesting here is how the ambition has kept growing, also as the city celebrates the legacy of its year 10 years on. So in 2018, the city had another major moment, which was inspired by the memory of what had happened as European Capital of Culture back in 2008. And yes, River of Light, as one of the moments in the year, played an important role. So interesting to reflect on what happens when you get a title such as this. There have been 62 cities that have hosted this initiative since 1985. It's an initiative from the European Union. And it's one example of a city that really has been transformed, that really has upgraded, revisited its narrative on the wake of this opportunity, raising cultural aspirations, going through an image renaissance, particularly within the UK itself, where the reputation of Liverpool was not as maybe it is further afield, and where its cultural credibility was in question. And also in terms of developing the skill base to deliver high-end cultural spectacle. What is also very valuable, and what the European Capital of Culture program did, as it happened just at the moment when we had the global economic crisis starting, so let's remember 2008 and what has happened since then, that actually was one of the very few cities in the UK where instead of reducing the budgets for culture, were growing, because what had happened during the year had been so important that the confidence from the city mayor, key stakeholders, the business, there was a belief that actually cultural and artistic activities had something significant to do, that it was not just an add-on, but something essential to the future of the city. And the thinking around festivals, public art interventions, and light were very much part of these new types of priorities. So again, there is evidence here on how this kind of title can have an enduring impact on city visioning and its approach to urban strategy. Now, I'm not an expert on light festivals per se. I work around cultural mega events, from the European Capital of Culture to the Olympic Games. I'm now on my way to Dubai, the World Expo. But it has been very interesting to think, okay, how much of what was going on in Liverpool this year and in other cities was also to do with light. So, of course, we had key moments, and Liverpool was one of the kind of first cities as well that was playing with the notion of opening ceremonies for a year. It's something that is now taken for granted, but was not really part of the protocol of a European Capital of Culture everywhere, as this is a year-long event. So it was quite important what happened during the opening, and yes, Walk the Plank played a role there. It was a surprise, and something very important for Liverpool, as there had been a lot of negative coverage just preceding, and there was very low confidence on what would happen in Liverpool. So this was a really turnaround moment. Interesting for me, looking back into my files and my archives, I had not really looked into this specifically, how many light installations were taking place throughout the year, how many different types of artists, and again, how new it was for the city to invest in this. So again, from the connection of the two cathedrals in the city in Hope Street with this kind of beaming green laser light, to gardens illuminated differently. This neon rabbit was also very popular, and many other interventions. So I was thinking then, what has happened with other forms of mega events? So beyond the European Capital of Culture and in environments like, again, the Olympic Games, it's clear, and of course you all know this, of how much of a role you can play to create moments of collective awe. And of course it's very amazing and how it can be captured in photographs, and how important it is within the opening, the closing moments. But what I think is new and significant, and is something that is probably the last decades, and in particular the last 15 years, is how light spectacle has also become one dimension of the sustainable legacy of those moments. So that is no longer something that is understood as the one-off, it happens and that's it. Actually can be seen as something that can be retained, that can be maintained, that can come back on a regular basis, and that can help also generate a sense of cohesion and to renew conversations about who people are and how they relate to each other, not just in terms of the local in terms of visitors, no? So those that you want to bring from outside, but also the local community. So very interesting to observe that. And again, revisiting my archives and my files, I could see Torino, that hosted the Olympic Games in 2006. And in fact, I learned was one of the pioneering cities as well with city light festivals. The LUCI Artista event that exists since 1998 played a role during the Games, creating accents and positioning the city. You know, you had the sport and all the media that was coming obviously for the mountains, for the competitions, but actually the city was also making a stance, you know, positioning itself vis-a-vis Milan and other Italian cities. This contributed as well to a very important cultural legacy. And again, the role of this festival and also the broader Cultural Olympiad helped as well, making arguments for what was then the first world design capital in 2008. So again, fascinating to see how part of the legacy, even of a sporting event, had to do also with the uses of light. I was very involved in the assessment of London 2012 and its Cultural Olympiad as well. And what you had was a very ambitious nationwide program connecting London and England with Scotland, with Northern Ireland, with Wales. And again, fascinating the amount of light event interventions. What happened and how important it was to link in this. These are images from Hadrian's Wall. And sorry that it's quite dark, because this was an image I took from one of the panels. I have not found a lot online, so many years on. Is this event where you had for the first time a heritage site and also in a natural setting, collaborating with technology and art collectives with very, very innovative interventions. In here, you could be using tweets and you would be affecting those lights. So again, this mega event helped creating arguments within an organization that would have never thought, those in charge of Hadrian's Wall, to experiment with light. And here in Edinburgh at Arthur's Seat, another very interesting intervention at the speed of light, where what you have is also the collaboration with sports, with athletes that were running across the mountain and creating, this kind of amazing artworks, connecting art, sport, the environment. So again, very important, and again, not to be underplayed, that mega event dimension, where you get this opportunity to talk and to reach out to the kinds of stakeholders that might be very reticent, that might not really listen, but in this occasion might think, okay, why not? Let's give it a try. Peace Camp was another really interesting initiative in remote locations. So with European Capitals of Cultures, and what has happened since the program started, we have awarded 75 cities. We are about to be selecting cities in Slovakia, and we have, again, 32 countries hosting this initiative. What has been very valuable is to move beyond the notion of this event being just around a cultural agenda, to see it as an opportunity to really link up with the economic, with the social, with the environmental domain, something that has to be really transversal, and where you need all of your city stakeholders involved in some way. So especially from 2000, we have a growing emphasis on the development of integrated strategies for the city and its cultural management, linking again the cultural and the economic sectors, and places like Glasgow were real pioneers in 1999 for this, but also bridging the city and the region, so important in terms of transport networks and where your communities and your people come from when you want a large-scale event, bridging the temporary, the one-off, with the physical and permanent infrastructural developments, and very important, bridging the cultural and social agenda. So here you have a list of the cities that have got the title since 1985. And yes, as Jessica was mentioning, what is fascinating is how many of them are part of this network of LUCI. And I'm sorry, because I got it from one of your magazines from 2019, so there might be new cities since then that I have not marked in here. So there is something here to be said about how the title also contributes to growing confidence and for cities to become far more a strategy and link up and become part of many types of networks. So significant. We've conducted a study. I had the opportunity to lead a study that was comparing the experiences of cities for the first 30 years of the initiative. It's published and is available for all of you to look into if you're interested. And we were looking and comparing at what are the key strategies for success, what leads to long-term impact, and what are the main recurrent challenges. So interesting to see how this offers an interesting reference point for all of you working within light festivals. What was important with this study is how we were trying to put together the different dimensions of how you bid, how you create a proposal, and put a delivery strategy, and how this leads to impact, and how you identify the different aspects, how you are defining your vision, your objectives, what is your governance environment, your approach to financing, how you plan for legacy, then how the different components of your activity are set up, and how this in turn translates into different types of impact. And again, people keep asking, what is the economic impact? Is that the priority? We keep saying, it's never just one type of impact. It's how you triangulate and relate the economic, the social, the cultural agenda. And depending on your point in time, your priority might be more on the economic front, but depending where you are or what your size, it might be more of a social agenda, what takes precedence, or the broader cultural issue. So there is not just one way of defining success, and this changes from year to year and from city to city. So we developed this model of comparisons, looked at the different hosts, and started to identify commonalities. So again, very important, the approach to bidding and how much it has evolved since the start of this initiative in 1985. It's now a really mature program. So the important element about how you raise ambition and how you really take seriously your vision, so that the event is not just happening per se and as something that is the end goal. What matters is how this links to your long-term strategy. how you link up different types of objectives, but then how important is the consultation process. So again, all of you will see how your different initiatives have come about. With a European Capital of Culture, it's simply not possible to host a year if you don't have real buy-in. And far beyond the cultural sector, far beyond the art institutions, you need everyone to be on board. And this is very difficult and time-consuming, but it's also the secret to the longevity, to the sustainability of that process. So how seriously you take your consultation, how wide-ranging it is, how innovative you are. Obviously, the approach to investment, so obviously get the right support, and your emphasis on quality. Don't give up on the quality ambitions, no matter how inclusive you want to be. In terms of the delivery strategies, the other dimension is that when you look into a program that is now 35, 36 years old, you have a lot of experience there. And what is very useful for you, and it compares very interestingly with Olympic Games hosts, is that here you have a true diversity of cities. From the 10 million city of Istanbul that hosted the title, to Valletta in Malta, with a few thousand people. So you have all kinds of examples of cities experiencing this. And here are the keys. One is vision, vision, vision. You need to have an overall strategy. You need to think big and be as coherent as you can. How you link that to your process of documentation, evidence gathering is very important as well to explain what has worked and not. The cross-sector agenda, so again, beyond your niche, it's very important, and this is also the key differential. Working with themed activity, so something also very useful for all of you, I think, that this program offers as a referent, is that as it's a year-long initiative, it forces cities really to reconsider what works best when. You might have always been hosted something at a particular time. If it links to a religious heritage, then it might be necessary for it to be then. But in other cases, you might have something that could work much better in another moment. So very interesting to see, think of seasonality and how you balance, a whole year to make the most of your environments and of the different communities you want to involve. And obviously the work with the grassroots communities and diverse audiences. So something that I found very useful was also to revisit common objectives. And I think, I don't know, Jessica, I'm happy to share these slides. Again, there is a lot of text, so you don't need to be looking in detail. But here you have some examples of how cities express their objectives, their priorities. These ones are on the cultural side. It's about enhancing your infrastructure for culture, showcasing the best that you have to offer in your area, arguing the case for the arts playing a role in your city, obviously community enthusiasm, participation, and obviously the economic agenda, the repositioning. What is really interesting is to see how this compares with the types of objectives that you would all have. And I have been looking at one of the magazines that is being distributed here, again from 2019, and a study that was conducted just talking with different cities about their key priorities and key objectives. So fascinating to see, obviously, the similarities with any event hosts. So what can you learn from each other? So obviously from this, so how you are promoting your assets, what is valuable and best in your environment, how you showcase talent, how you raise awareness of the value of those initiatives for your place, for placemaking, how you encourage participation, and obviously how this translates into the opportunity to change image. So there is a lot of learning that certainly you can make, and important to think and connect with that heritage of cities. So I have a few images out of moments, and I'm conscious about time. But yes, obviously the very first obvious dimension was the ceremonies angle, although as I mentioned earlier, this is more common now. So pre-2007, 2006, some of the cities might not really start with activities around the European Capital of Culture until springtime. And there was certainly not a tradition to gather people at the start in order to make a point. It's something that has really evolved because there is not too many directives from the European Commission. compared with other big event networks. But obviously cities have realized it is important to make a statement. And what you have now is growing media attention. And something, again, very valuable for you is not just media specialized in arts and cultural assets, it's mainstream media, because we are talking about cities presenting themselves across all platforms, and at times having a very much of a focus on their environmental angle or their gastronomy. It's not really just one sector. So important and interesting now that protocols have been established. You have experienced organizations, just Walk the Plank, and there are a few others. There is a lot of transfer of knowledge on how you host these events. So interesting, the growth and the developments. But what is also relevant is this, aftermath, and how often is precisely, the light strategy that stays. I have here one image from Glasgow in 1990, and one of the key legacy areas that was the tramway, a tramway site, developed the hidden gardens. How interesting, again, the capacity and the confidence that was developed in the city, how it resulted into all of these new initiatives. What is also new, I mentioned the seasonal transitions and the importance of knowledge transfer, so how much cities are learning from each other. I hear that obviously in the case of Tartu, for instance, they had not thought about the light strategy as a priority for the European Capital of Culture necessarily, but now obviously connecting and discussing how it's becoming apparent that this could be a very valuable way forward. And we have obviously the example of Oulu here. We are going to hear from this in a moment, where actually the light strategy is key even from the bid stage. So interesting developments and a variety of examples. So here is my kind of closing remarks before we launch into the different experiences. In terms of how a European Capital of Culture can offer an interesting reference for you as a network, and also the broader example of mega events. So on the one hand, yes, clearly they are valuable platforms to explore, showcase, and expand city lighting strategies, because they are one-offs. They tend to be once in a generation, once in a lifetime. So you get a sense of euphoria, dedication and commitment that is hard to match. So this is the time. You know, if a city is bidding for one of these initiatives, so they are about to host it, this is the time to set a meeting, talk and say, okay, what is it that you are doing and how can we help? The key added value of these types of initiatives is the emphasis placed on the long-term visioning strategy. This is now a requirement by selection committees because there is this fear of the white elephants, no? and all that has happened in the past with mega events going wrong. And in the wake of a pandemic, where there is a big question mark on whether mega events are necessary at all, these kinds of questions are becoming even more important. So again, the emphasis and the thinking around visioning strategies has become very sophisticated. The transversal approach is the other key. So again, for any area where you have a really specialized angle, how do you link up with networks that really work across all of the different bodies and agencies and other aspects of the sector, no? From heritage to the performing arts, to circus. I mean, you will have them all involved, the libraries. Very valuable. The international network and the value of having something that has existed for a few decades. The opportunities for knowledge transfer, real families get created. So obviously you have yours here, but it's always valuable to have the networks of networks, no? And how, depending on your emphasis and on your city, which type of gathering associated to a mega event, a European Capital of Culture might also be relevant to you. I mentioned mainstream media. So again, reaching out and becoming front line, no? And first page news is important. And again, this dual value of having a European Capital of Culture that can help established festivals grow and expand, or that can help new initiatives to gather more credibility, get a sense of ownership, just because of how special it feels to have had this kind of once-in-a-lifetime chance. So again, all of this, you can access it online. There are plenty of reports, plenty of materials published, a lot of technical appendices, you know, for those of you that want to see the numbers, what costs. There is a lot of material gathered. on the European Capital of Culture front, but also in the case of the Olympic Games, in terms of the future of festivals, there are a wide range of materials that I'm very happy to help you access. So I leave it here, and I'm going to be followed. So what we are now going to have is the chance to hear from 3 different cities, and we are going to start with Matera, that will have 7-8 minutes, and then we will follow with Oulu and finally Tartu before we have the conversation. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone, and a big thank you to the organization for the invitation to this important meeting. Lumen Social Light was a Matera 2019 project that in period between 2018 and in 2021 addressed the theme A Light Across to rather different dimensions: luminous installation and the virtuous and the participatory use of the light. With Lumen Social Light, the city was dressed in the light, thanks to involvement of the citizens of Matera and the region, Basilicata region, in preparation for celebration of Matera as European Capital of Culture. Lumen reinterpreted the ancient tradition of illumination in a contemporary key, creating large light installation in the shape of map pointer. The idea arose from a suggestion by light designer Giovanna Bellini, who thought of combining a visual element, Google's map pointer, with an element of local tradition, namely the illumination typically of South Italy, with the highest expression in the city of Matera during the religious celebration of July the 2nd. For the creation of this large luminous structure, 5 meters high by 3 meters wide, workshop we organized in Matera, both a high school in the Open Design School of Matera with participants all ages. Citizens and students, along with the local craftsmen, started with the raw material and were then involved in treatment and the building of wooden structure, in the assembly of electrical circuit and mounting of various types of bulb until the erection of installation. Once completed, the 15 luminous structure called the map pointer were installed on build and metal support at strategic point at the city entrances as a welcoming element for tourists, in the suburbs as an element of urban regeneration and a symbolic location that hosts Matera 2019's events. With the social light, the project of enhancing the illumination of the city acquired a powerful social dimension. Between November and December 2018, the citizens were given a chance to shine, creating a small illumination element, a so-called backlight. Each participant built 2 backlights, once to take with them to opening ceremony or to light up their home, and another was donated to the city as decorative illuminating element. In this case too, the circular luminous element combined tradition and innovation by reproducing, on the one hand, the traditional shape on flow, sifter, and the tambourine, and on the other, evocative the blue dot that connect the place on a map. This innovative portable light is environment friendly and sustainable thanks to use of recycled material. In fact, the strut is from made fabric scrap and enlightened with a storage battery recycling by a small solar panel. For the prototyping phase of a model, local companies that share their interest in social issues, sustainable and lighting were involved.
Social Light therefore worked with citizens of all ages, blending different generations and creating a virtuous use of light, as well as opening up new concepts for public lighting. In the 2 moments leading up to the opening ceremony, 50 workshops were held at 19 locations across the city. Primary and secondary schools, associations for the elderly, the disabled, and people with Down syndrome, LGBTs, parishes, scout centers, hospitals, neighborhood centers, squares, gyms, dance schools, call centers, stores, and museums opened their door to permanent and temporary citizens for making their baglights, helping to generate smaller and larger cultural communities. In addition to the city of Matera, 19 workshops were set up in 19 municipalities of the region Basilicata, giving out a clear signal of the widespread participation in smaller towns. Participation and co-creation have been cornerstones for Matera 2019, generating an important legacy and a way for actively engaging in events, workshops, performances, projects, and festivals. Lumen Social Light is one of the pillar projects of the theme of participation in Matera 2019, with its impressive numbers. 600 citizens built 15 map pointers, 6,000 people built 5,000 baglights used to enlighten not only the opening ceremony, but also the entire year as a European Capital of Culture. The location of the workshops were found either by the Matera Basilicata 2019 Foundation or proposed by the citizens or institutions themselves, all motivated by the desire to experience Matera 2019 from the inside, bringing cultural endeavor into the most unexpected places. Each workshop was an opportunity to promote cultural involvement and active citizenship and provided visible proof that culture can reach everywhere and promote well-being. In the 2 technical colleges, the workshop for the construction of the map pointers generated a great sense of social redemption. Once the students had completed their work, they were keen to carry it, and it was huge, from the workshop to the actual location as a gesture of their sense of strong belonging. In the oncology, pediatrics, and geriatrics wards, patients, their families, doctors, and nurses worked side by side, creating lights of hope for themselves and for the city. In associations for senior citizens, the children and the elderly collaborated in assembling the baglights, working hand in hand. The 2 workshops held in the call center were an opportunity to bring to light the artistic flair and professionalism of many of the young people. Finally, inside the Museum of Medieval and Modern Art in Matera, 100 citizens worked simultaneously in the exhibition rooms amongst paintings and sculptures, feeding off the cultural treasures surrounding them and producing culture themselves. A wonderful process of cooperative creation and acceleration, all centered around light. As requested by the citizens, thanks to the support of the local institutions, map pointers have been kept on site beyond 2019. The last map pointer was taken down in July 2021 to mark the beginning for new projects. In thanking you for your attention, we'll show you a short video filmed during the workshops, which testified enthusiastic participation and cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that fantastically enthusiastic presentation. And I can vow that in terms of legacy, Matera 2018-19, you have done an amazing job. I mean, in fact, what is happening in Dubai at the Expo tomorrow is an event hosted, through the foundation at the Italian Pavilion, and an opportunity for the first time to discuss the European Capital of Culture program in the context of an expo. So that's great. Well, I'm very happy now to welcome to the stage Pia Rantala so that we can hear about Oulu and your plans.
Yes, thank you, everybody. So nice to be here. Last time when we had a LUCI meeting, it was in Oulu, having a City Under Microscope event, and those of you who were there, you know that how it is in Oulu in November. It's really dark. So our main goal is to make a cultural climate change, not only in Oulu or in Finland, but hopefully in Europe. Say goodbye to hate speech and start to really collaborate with the big challenges which we have as a whole human mankind. So Oulu is now officially nominated to be the European Capital of Culture in 2026. This has been a long process, and the budget is 50 million euros divided to years from 21 to 26, so it's a historical opportunity for our city and region to have some extra money also to make something which we normally couldn't do. The goals are to make a more vibrant, gripping city, a balanced community, and a more creative Arctic area up in the north. Here in one picture, it is made by my colleague Henry. You can see a creative design process, which is the core of Oulu 2026. So the starting point in 2017 was that we asked the children and young people in Oulu their dreams about Oulu in 2026. So we are not making this for ourselves, we are making this for the future people so that they can have a better world and a better future for themselves. Everything has been really participative, and we will have open calls, international and local open calls. We want everybody to take part in this important process and make things together with us. And this will continue until the end of 2027, when is the 27 is the year of the self-evaluation and research, which we will make together with Kupore, which is the only cultural policy research center in Finland. But why is light so important for us in the north? One of our sub-themes is contrasts, and we can see the contrast really strongly in the lightning, natural lightning. In summertime there is no dark night at all, so there is sunshine day and night. And in the winter time, in November, in December, it's quite the opposite. In the darkest time of the year, we have some 3.5 hours so-called daylight, and it's not really sunny. It's something like more grey in that time. So it's really important question for us. It has also something to do with the mental health in our area. In north, people have more mental problems than what they do in south, and maybe it has something to do with the light changes during the year. Our strategy is to gain new audiences for culture, and we think that light art is just the right thing to start with, because light art is easily accessible. Most of the installations, they are in public places. You don't have to go to any museum and buy any tickets. You can find it everywhere around in your daily life environments. And when we had our first light festival in 2013, our citizens immediately fell in love in that spectacle. And what is really special for our every year light festival is also that we make one big installation together with children. We have about 20,000 pupils in our schools, and every year 1,000 pupils are chosen to take part in a participative light art process. There is always one light artist who puts those elements together so that it's high quality, although the smaller elements are made by the kids. And we counted that until 2026 we will have in total 14,000 pupils who have been participating in these processes. And I think that it's also good to have this kind of light art education. When you are hands-on making light art, you come kind of a small specialist in this genre of art, and it's really important. So in our program there is a theme, cool contrasts, and there is a sub program line called Light Matters, and there we are going to work with light art in many ways. Of course, we will have a biggest Lumo festival ever, which will be longer and much more richer in content. We want to work with international light artists and also make such installations which we can circulate around European festivals. So please, if you are interested in collaboration, so you can always contact me or my colleagues Henri or Jarkko, who you have met here in Tartu. And of course we want to make co-productions with local artists so that they can have new knowledge and new know-how how to make world-class light art. And of course we will have participative workshops as they have had in Matera, which happens to be our twin city. So I'm sure that we will also collaborate with our colleagues in Matera. So follow us in social media and be in contact. We want to make everything together with others. I really believe that we can learn so much from each other, and together we can make amazing things happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pia. And something I want to stress from your presentation is the value of starting with that slide that actually emphasizes the importance of understanding, measuring, testing, documenting. So the attention paid to actually how you document the process so that you can learn the lessons is really valuable and the key to what is sustainable. So now we're going to be joined through the screen by our third speaker, representing Tartu 2024. So is it all working? Oh, here we have you. Very much welcome. So we are looking forward to hearing from you.
Tere hommikust kõigile. Good morning, everybody. It's so lovely to see and hear so interesting presentations. Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you, Matera and Oulu. My name is Jaan Ulst. I'm a program line manager in the program team, Tartu with Humanity. And I'm here to give you a slight overview. What are the plans for Tartu 2024? So in my next slide, I wanted to give you the the overview of the region we have. So we are talking about Tartu with 19 other municipalities in south of Estonia, and also the city of Viljandi. And this is going to be the biggest event in Estonia in 2024. And absolutely, it's the biggest joint event we have ever done in south of Estonia. We are busy with it at the moment. The constant and regular meetings in the region. This is very exciting. We are, when we talk about the program, in my next slide, then at the moment we have going on the second part of the program, which we are looking for from our region. So everybody who wanted to present their projects, they have done so in October, and we are very much looking what are the interesting aspects coming out of there. I jumped to the second already, but we do have a first part of the program which is already in progress. We are currently in different meetings and setting up the production contracts. We are a bitbook-based ECOC, so if you will find our bitbook in our website, and you will see there are several big projects which were in our development process last year, and we are going to set them in motion from next year. So we will announce them in December. So this is really exciting times. There are some projects which are connected to light installations and light. I'm not allowed to go more in depth in there. It is really nice to hear that Oulu is working so closely with the theme of light. In Tartu, we haven't done so. We have described our values. So we talk about transversal, transnational, transgenerational projects. For us, it's very important ecologically consciousness in our projects. And of course, how Beatrice already mentioned, the long-term impact in ECOC project is very important. And I already mentioned the regional and international collaboration, what we are looking for. So it's about transversal, so it's about connecting the light theme in smaller projects. I wanted to address our third part of the program. We just recently announced it. There's going to be an open call for Tartu international applications. And this is going to be open from 1st of January next year until 3rd of April 2022. So we are looking for international bigger projects, including light projects. That's very important to say. I also wanted to mention that we in our team, we don't produce the projects ourselves. So we are looking for partners who organize the projects together with us. So if we talk about the light festivals, we are looking for them to join our application rounds, and we can have our cooperation starting from there. That's the idea. And then also we have smaller projects application round in 2023, but that's the future plan. So overall, I can say that in our region we have several light festivals which are closely connected to communities, and these are the festivals we already know, and we hope that they will join our program. I can mention 10 years ago already we had Tõrva Loits, then In Viljandi, we have a very small young light festival coming up. Then in Nöö, we have Nöö Light Festival already from 2015. Then there are new initiatives also coming up, so people are really looking to connect the light, as you mentioned in Finland. Also here, our winters are getting darker. Soon, in 1 month, we will have only a few hours of daylight. So people are looking for ways to enlighten those moments. But I think this is a short overview, and we can continue.
And I think we now can all take the stage. Let's see if I sit over here. Right, we take mics. Yes, can you hear us well? Yes. All right, fantastic. And yes, maybe. Okay, yes, we have. Well, wonderful, and we are perfectly within time. So we are doing very well behaved panel. I'm very aware that obviously we have a fantastic audience here live, but that we also have those of you that are following us remotely. So what we plan to do now is to have some minutes for the panel to discuss between themselves with a few questions, and then we will open up for Q&A. And we certainly welcome questions from the floor. And Jessica will also be helping us coordinating with questions that you can pose on the chat function, isn't it? Very good. Well, so here we go. We have you here, and you are also hearing us. Yes, no problem, from the distance. Jan, so we have a few questions we wanted you to consider, and they link very much also to what I was presenting at the start. The first is why use light as a theme for a European Capital of Culture program? What can it bring? So again, from your perspectives, I mean, obviously you have started and emphasized that very much. But yes, maybe in terms of the connections, I don't know if there is something more that you would want to add, especially as we have Tartu now thinking into how to develop that dimension further.
So light is always important and is always part of an event, is always present. Being a European capital of culture, you can't focus on a light festival. You can't focus just on light, but as I said, it's always present. We had some luminous installations shortly, some luminous artists that went around the city. You used the mapping video, map art, video mapping, and we decided to use light as a mean of participation to help people be in the process of being a European capital of culture. Starting months before the year's European Capital of Culture, we raised interest in what was going to happen, and the citizens which participated in our workshops were felt as if they were building something important for the whole year, helped participation, helped identification, and so it was, as we said, something like enlightening a dream.
Yes, and I wonder, yes, about your thoughts around that, in terms of that participatory approach, because obviously you have a lot of experience in Oulu playing with light, but I wonder what is different, whether there is something that you feel, okay, we could try something new, what would be different because of the European Capital of Culture being the context for you?
I think that one challenge to our city is that our city area, it's so huge. So it's about 80 kilometers from one border to the other border. So there is so much sparsely populated area also in our city. So our challenge is that how can we participate also those citizens who are not living in the city center, but who are living in one-family houses, maybe in the middle of the forest or in smaller villages around our region. And we also have 32 other municipalities in our program. So there are really huge areas without any artificial lighting, and I think that that is also really important. That is also something which we want to show audiences who come abroad to our region. How is the natural darkness like? Because it's not able to be seen in many big cities around the world.
Yes, well, that's a very interesting point also in terms of what is different, that actually is not precisely the lack of light and how to experience that. I wonder from Tartu's perspective, and obviously we know you were telling us, you cannot tell us, there are certain things you might not be able to share with us. But of course we are here, we have the Tava festival going on, and activities and workshops that have been happening. How do you see what might be a new opportunity thanks to the European Capital of Culture program on the light front?
Well, Tava is a great example where light is brought onto the streets, but also in very professional level. I really like the idea of light connecting the communities. I know when the festivals are working for themselves, would be great to find common ground between them. So it becomes not only a performative act, kind of creating their emotions, and it would have more a social aspect in it. So that would be a great addition, I think. Again, connecting the region in a larger. In Neo Light Festival, for example, because of the COVID situation, we had to organize kind of a community-based festival. So the festival team created a starting packages, which we gave out to the families, and each family could have their own festival. And the visitors could follow the map and walk side on the street and see what different families kind of created from the starting package.
Thank you. I mean, obviously, there is another point that I keep thinking about that has to do with standardization, no? So how do you make sure that you look different? And we have this element that has to do with transfer of knowledge, and obviously, the more professional you become, the more efficient and effective you are, but also the more similar. So when you also incorporate the light dimension, where your landscapes might be, you don't see, and what you have is all of these neons and so on, there is this other aspect of whether it could be anywhere. I don't know how your thinking is developing on that front, on how you can make a mark so that this could only be Matera, this could only be Oulu, this can only be Tartu. How is your thinking around those iconic images that obviously you might want to produce that also need to say it was us? Is it a challenge? Is it more challenging to do it when it's in the context of a light festival, or actually do you feel that there are valuable opportunities?
So it's a difficult question, because to be liked, you should follow the standards. But following the standards, you are not unique and you are not recognizable. See those lanterns made with the same structure, but different, the one from the other, because we made it. We made it by ourselves. So for us, the key was and still remains participation. We had 15 same map pointers made by different persons, put in 15 different parts of the city, mostly peripheral and at the entrances of the city. And even if they were the same, each location made it different. So you can find something unique also when there's something standard.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
In our city, we have, for example, one permanent light installation which is made in part of the water power plant, which is in the middle of Oulu city center. So there's a river Oulu, and then there is a water power plant. and it's kind of an iconic building in our city center. So I think that there is no other such building in other cities. It's only in Oulu. It's something which it's unique for our city.
And you think that 2026 might also give you that extra platform to get this better known? I mean, I wonder, yes.
Yes. We hope that until 26 we will have all important buildings light with permanent light installations so that they can be on in wintertime. Of course, in summertime it's difficult because we don't really use any artificial light in the midsummer. So then those light installations, they just disappear.
So I don't know, from Tartu's perspective, yes, how do you avoid the danger of standardization whilst also benefiting from having common standards?
I absolutely agree with you that different light festivals can be very similar. I wanted to bring this one project we have to the focus, Toomemägi Revisited. So if you have seen, we have a big church in Toomemägi, Toomkirik. So we would like to create that as a big landmark, as a light big landmark. I think it's important to involve this kind of specific historical places in different locations, in different cities, and through that history to kind of empower the festival, the topic. I think then we can find the differences, and then the originality can stay.
Thank you. So before we open up, there is another, it's 2 dimensions of a question, and it's basically trying to test my own theories. I have made some claims, so I would want to see whether you actually would refute them or not. So one of them, and you can choose which one you might want to focus on, was this idea that obviously through hosting the European Capital of Culture program, you really push forward the importance to develop a coherent cultural strategy and developing cultural policy approach within your city. So I wonder, from your point of view, whether actually your experience since getting the award, and in your case, since hosting, whether you have seen that the approach to strategic thinking in the city has changed in some way, and whether, again, the light experiences are playing a part that, again, can be sustained, where there are better arguments, no? And it's not just one-off. So that's one. I would like to know whether actually it is true or not. The other side is whether you believe, or in which way you think that the light dimension and the light interventions within a European Capital of Culture program can also help you extend the legacy of that event. So there is that element, no? Whether being a European Capital of Culture helps you position better your light strategies, or whether actually having light activities also helps you sustain the credibility and the memory of a European Capital of Culture. So you can choose or combine answers on that front.
Well, I think that when we were making our cultural strategy, the starting point was that it's not the cultural strategy of the cultural services or the cultural institutions, but it's a strategy for the whole city and the whole community living and acting in our city. And I think that light art is it's a good example of that kind of cultural activities where it's really easy to get people from different expertises to work together, so that there are people who are working with the technical device which you need with the lighting, and then there are the cultural people, but they have to work together and make the common shared vision that what can we do. And it's a good way to combine the functional and the aesthetic aspects of culture, so that it's not something which is just beautiful, it's also really functional. For example, in one big school which we built a few years ago, we always put some public art in new schools, and in that school the public art outside the school building was light art. So now it's something which is really permanent.
Thank you.
When a city competes for becoming a European capital of culture, there is a light spot on the city. So as the candidacy is not always in charge of the municipality. In Matera, for example, it was a different foundation. And we had the role to show to everybody who was living inside the city that things could have been made differently. We had the capability of bringing in experts, artists, and examples, models that the others wouldn't have the chance or the courage to do. So we had this responsibility to show something different, to open culture, to lead the way to new ways of thinking and doing that the others should have kept. And that was the most difficult part. That's why participation and co-creation for us were key elements, where we gave the others the opportunity to enter our doors, to be part of a process that could seem closed, but wasn't at all. And as for we made example and we lead the way also to the institutions for enhancing lighting, enhancing the way of doing things, events, of thinking and of living culture. We had a passport for 2019. A person bought a ticket that was usable all year round for all the events. Nothing else should be paid by people. It costed 19 euros as 2019, a symbolic way, and it was really a way to make people participate to cultural events. So it's really up to you how to change perspectives.
But for instance, on that, has the city thinking strategically say, well, for instance, this passport idea, could we keep utilizing it? I mean, it has, in terms of what is staying, that is contributing to a more efficient way of governance for culture? Are these things being taken on by the city now?
The municipality of Matera asked us to use the passport as free ticket on buses. I say this way, but it's not correct. I mean, who bought the passport could use it also to ride buses in the city center. That was a mean to make something ideally cultural, also practical. Nowadays, the passport expired. Nowadays, it isn't anymore on use, but we was penalized by COVID. Maybe something different would have been if COVID wouldn't exist. Now we have to reconstruct something more. But it was a great example.
Fantastic. So, and then we are going to be ready to open up. I don't know if there is any other points you would like to make from the Tartu point of view.
I'm just going to say that our bid book is based on the cultural strategy of Tartu City. So Tartu City is very important partner in every step. And in the audience development side, where we are looking for specific target groups, which we find at the moment not participating in culture enough. For example, the youth and the elderly. So the public spaces have been quite in a focus in Tartu for the recent years. One of the big events I would say is the Car-Free Avenue, which is happening in August, and this is in August, so there is not so much about lights, but it's very much about public space and public space for different audiences, for different purposes, to meet, to interact, to enjoy an event or lunch. So this is very closely tied with our program also, where we are looking for different ways of including the audience. And I think, yes, for the Oulu, exactly, the light, it's in so many ways it can bring people together. So it's very, very useful. For the city festival Tava, then of course we have to ask Elo how is the strategies influenced her and this festival.
Thank you. So, well, we have now 15 minutes to open up. And I hope it has been interesting. Maybe we were being overcautious, but I think there will probably be many questions from you. So it will be Jessica moderating. Thank you.
Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you, Jan, from Zoom. Glad to have you here. So again, I just want to say hello to our online participants. We have many, many cities represented online, so thank you for being here too. And I want to give the opportunity first for the online questions, since here I'll come up to the panelists afterwards and ask them if we don't have time. So first we're going to go to a couple of questions we got. The first one is from Rick in Eindhoven. And just a reminder, when you ask a question here, please tell us who you are and where you're from so that the online participants can know you, because they won't see you. But Rick asks, to what extent does the growing participation ambition include exclusion of others? After all, if it is impossible to involve everyone, how do you communicate that in an attractive way so that the event still feels like it is from and for everyone? Do you want to try it?
Yeah. For example, if we think about our Lumo Festival and children's participation, so it's every time a different school. And in Finland, everybody goes to the public schools, so that it's quite equal if we have many enough festivals, so every school can have their turn to participate, and all kind of children are involved, not only the talented and bold ones.
For us, it was really easy because we didn't ask people to come. Can you hear me? We didn't ask people to come. We went to churches, to parishes, into the hospitals. So it was almost impossible, it's up to you always, not to participate. So we helped the participation this way. We moved.
They had to hide from you.
Someone did.
Well, in Tartu, we are currently making open calls. So we are in the process of inviting everybody to raise a hand and join. So this is the moment to send your ideas. Probably at one point, we should also go to some target groups and more communicate our plans and possibilities for them to join.
Okay, and another question that is a little similar, but we'll see if you have further things to say, from Anastasia Angeli. Do you think that light has the power of bringing more diversity to our communities, considering the flexibility and responsiveness of it used in public spaces? So I think you've already talked about that you went to everyone and you have different schools and students that can participate. But in terms of the diversity of the audiences, is light helping to get to different kinds of communities?
Yes, I really think so. If I think about ordinary audience, for example, in city theatre or symphony orchestra concert, they are quite homogenic audiences, but while we are having our light festival, there are really all kinds of people taking part, because you don't have to be any specialist to be ready to join light festival.
Culture is for everybody. It's up to you to shift the point of view and the way how to make something. So we made backlights also with disabled people, with the ancient, with not a standard means. You have to change in relationship to who you have in front of you. That's it. Thinking at the object, we thought at something that everybody could use, realize, and make. We chose something really simple. We have some here. We'll show you later. So that's it. If you think at the diversity and you think at what you can do for them, you make something unique. I think for lighting, it will be the same. If you think at people, at blind people that can see, you have to think to them to make something unique and different.
Great. Yeah. And there is something I wanted to add, because also what is interesting in terms of pushing you all forward when you do it in the context of a European Capital of Culture program. there is that question that is culture and not just the arts. And culture can be very broad in its interpretation. So obviously in every city, people also, these kinds of titles really involve and get a conversation going that gets very broad. So for instance, in a place like Liverpool, the conversation was about rubbish and cleanliness. And what is the European capital of culture going to do about that? Or crime and alcohol. So all topics were part of this, and the title, the year, needed to help resolve that. So it's very interesting then if you think on a light program, how can you link it? So how can you discuss crime and then bring this kind of intervention to do something that becomes really positive and transformative? And obviously the discussion on cleanliness, on safety, it's what really, that is the one dimension that these kinds of initiatives can do, when they really get you to get the artists collaborating with the social workers, with the police, and really opening up this transversal conversation. And then it really ends up including everyone.
Being a European capital of culture, the citizens expect you to solve all the practical problems. So for Tartu, for Oulu, I will suggest you to think at practical problems that you could solve in a creative way, in an artistic way, so that you can help people trust you and you to do something useful.
Great. All right, now we can go to our in-person audience. I see a question right here. Nikita will bring you a microphone. Excuse me. Thank you.
Hello. Oh, my voice. Hello, everyone. My name is Veronika Meyerböck. I'm a lighting designer from Austria. I was interested in how, since sustainability and approaching climate change is such a big topic, so I was curious how you integrate that in your future or long-term programmation, and how you might use lighting design also and the means of participation to like embed this into actually this event or programming.
Maybe Oulu, it's in your title.
Yeah, if I have understood correctly, the amount of energy which we need in lighting today or in the future, it's smaller and smaller because there are new kind of technical devices which don't need so much energy. So I think that is one thing. But of course, when we talk about climate change and sustainable environment, we also have to talk about light pollution, so that light is where it is needed and it's not too much lighting anywhere. So you have to find the balance. Everything which we human beings do, it's not good for the environment.
For Tartu, we can say that we already have a very ecologically conscious view on our program through environmentally friendly guidebook and strategy. This is already in our website, and we are looking for projects who are very much connected to being very conscious. What is the rubbish produced? What is the energy used? Yeah, and also for the capacity building, I think this is one of the key words of getting the message to the organizers. We will have Kultuurikompass. This is a big seminar coming up in the end of November, this November, and this is about talking about the topic of creating environmentally friendly events. So this is very much close to our hearts.
Great, thank you. Other questions? Yes, right over here.
Hello, it's Liz from Walk the Plank, and I've got a couple of, excuse me. First of all, just want to say how inspiring to hear about Matera's use of light with participants, and thank you for that. I was thinking about what Beatrice was saying about how do you stop things feeling like they're all the same, and I was thinking beyond light, and I know that many of you are already doing this, the way that you can use sound and music and song and words, and that light on its own is just one dimension, and can appear the same wherever. But once you start to work with writers, with poets, with composers, who they will add that sense of local distinctive voice. So that isn't my question. My question is around, and it sort of is similar to the thing about creating division or unity. I was thinking about the use of light in a spiritual dimension, and how many faiths use light as an image, and whether you have examples, I suppose, particularly thinking about what happened in Matera, a Catholic country, the relationship between faith and light, and whether anyone has come across any issues around that, or whether that is only a positive thing. You know, thinking, you said you worked with parishes and churches. Has anyone come up against anyone feeling that this notion of light as a spiritual dimension is now being appropriated for secular reasons, and we're just having light festivals, but we're not really thinking about what that means?
Great and difficult question, I think. Who wants to try to answer this?
There is always a spiritual dimension in light. I don't know if you had the chance to see some pictures of Matera. It's made of caves. So we use also candles, a lot of candles sometimes, to make a particular lighting. It surely has a spiritual dimension. It's up to you or to look at these lights, if to capture also the spiritual dimension or not. We, for example, illuminated the opposite side of the statue of Matera, a ravine in a natural park, with candles. So you have to evocate the kind of light you want, the idea you have of what you want, what is the idea beyond the light, makes the evocative side and the perception of the person different.
Because it's a very important and interesting question, and especially what you say, whether you see that the Festival of Light is replacing other traditions. I have done a lot of work with cities that are very divided on the religious front, and in the context of the UK, the Protestant versus the Catholic. No, I mean, both Glasgow and Liverpool have those divisions, also multiplied through the football clubs, and that translate into colours as well. No, so in Liverpool is the blues against the reds. So actually light and the light activities became very important because they were not replacing the traditions of either the Catholic or the Protestant, but trying to find like a neutral ground to establish a conversation that didn't feel threatening. So for instance, that connection between the two cathedrals and the green light connecting the Protestant or the Anglican and the Catholic cathedral across Hope Street was valuable. It built also, because with European capitals of culture, what you can have is also time to build up things progressively. So in a place like Liverpool, to get the year accepted, one of the preceding thematic years was a year of faith. And actually, it was all precisely about having time to establish the conversations with the different faith groups, hear what they needed, and then be ready and prepared for 2008. In Glasgow, it was similar. That image of the hidden gardens in the tramway is very much connecting with that and linking with the Muslim communities and the Jewish groups. So actually, yeah, I feel that there are very good examples of it being a meeting point rather than replacing something more authentic.
Actually, I think we have to end now as we're right on time, but you all are very lucky in the room that you can continue these conversations during lunch and this afternoon, tonight at dinner. Also tonight, you'll get to see a light festival, the Tava Festival here, so it'll be a great experience for you. So just thank you to our panelists, to Jan online, and to everyone online and in the person here today. Thank you.